funny, you got things people say that they think are in the Bible. Did you know cleanliness is next to godliness is not in the Bible? And then you got some in-between ones. And one of my favorites is, "'Tis better to give than to receive." Now that one, Paul tells us, Jesus said, but it's not in the Gospels anywhere. So he got it from, of course, he lived in the time when there were eyewitnesses. So apparently Jesus said it, didn't make it into the Gospels, but Paul quotes it. So it made it into the Bible. Reading through James, this is one I discovered. Naked you came into this world, naked you'll go out. That's actually in James. Did you know that? That's one of my favorites. My mother had a favorite variation of that one. You know what that one was? I brought you into this world, I can take you. Yeah. It was similar, yeah. It was similar. We're talking about Bible stories. We're talking about stories. And this morning we're going to look at a conversation that God had with King David because it's very important. We're coming up on the Christmas season, and I want us to really look forward to Christmas. We've been through the Bible stories of the Old Testament, and we've come to the exile, and there's even some stories that happen between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Did you know that? There's a whole lot of stuff that happens, important stuff that makes the New Testament, when you read the New Testament, if you know the stories that happened in that intervening period, you go, oh, that's what they're talking about in the New Testament. I had to go to college to learn them, but we can provide them for you here. But we're going to look back, we're going to go all the way back to King David. We've talked a lot about descendants of King David and stuff that happened hundreds of years after King David. But what God promised King David is very important for looking forward to the coming of Jesus. And I just cannot impress upon you how important it is that a baby was born on that silent night. And really the circumstances of his birth are less important than we make it out to be. Of course, it's the great irony, right? It's a great irony. The king of all the universe, they don't even have room for him in the inn, right? Casting Crowns has a new song. I love Casting Crowns. This starts out in the first verse, talks about that family. There's no room in the inn. Then the chorus asks, is there room in your heart? You know, that's an old saying. They're not the first ones to say it, but is there room in your heart? There was no room in the inn for Jesus, but is there room in your heart for Jesus? I'm going to be showing a video if we ever get to have Sunday night Bible study again. I'm going to show a video. It's kind of long for a video. It's about 22 minutes, but it's about a tribe in Papua New Guinea who hears the gospel message for the first time. Of course, they got no idea who Abraham is. They got no idea who King David is. They got no idea who Moses is. And so in order to tell them about Jesus, they got to start at the beginning. In the beginning, God. And right and wrong. And Adam and Eve ate from the tree, and mankind fell into darkness. And God promised that there would be someone who came along. Elsie, I'm preaching, okay? And there would be someone who came along to fix all of these things. And we waited for hundreds and thousands of years, waiting for this final promise to come to fruition. We're going to talk about one of those promises today. But since we're talking about stories, and we don't really have much of a Bible story today, it's just more of a conversation, I'd like to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a young man, and he lived in rural Missouri, and he was poor to begin with. And so he left where he lived in rural Missouri and found out, guess what? It's the Depression and everyone else is poor too. So in looking for work, like many people, he made his way west. And I've been watching the documentary on country music, and I didn't realize that out of all the oppressed minorities that we have had throughout the ages of the existence of America, that one of those groups that had their own name and a whole bunch of stereotypes about them was out in California. They were called Okies. And they didn't, and no one, one of the quotes on there was, I've never known an Okie to work. And one of the Okies said, I've never known an Okie that wouldn't. But apparently it was just like any group or any stereotype you might have out here. And it didn't even matter, because my dad is from Texas, and he would hate to be called an Okie. No offense to Okies. But, but out there, if you had fled the Dust Bowl, and the lack of opportunity in the Midwest, didn't matter if you were an Arkie or a Texan or a Missourian or whatever, you got lumped into one big faction called Okies. Well, I can only imagine that this young man was probably lumped into that category, but he made his way all the way out to California and built a life for himself here. And at one point, he decided to come back with his family and visit relatives in Missouri, because just like Sarah Evans from Boonville sings, the only thing about visiting Missouri is Mama. That's the only reason to visit home, right? You remember that song? Came out back in Missouri. She doesn't list any attractions. She doesn't sound like she's proud to be from here. Just that's where Mama lives, and I miss Mama. So I was thoroughly disappointed with that song. If she was from southern Missouri, well, never mind. But that's the good part, I think. But anyways, this young man, he made his way back to Missouri. He visited relatives, and it's a long drive back. And he was one of 7 brothers and 3 sisters. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to stop off and I'm going to visit all the relatives that didn't land in California. They landed in West Texas. And so he and his wife and whatever kids they might have had at the time, they made their way to West Texas and stopped off there in Sunray and had dinner with his younger brother. And his younger brother said, "Oldest son, why don't you bless the food before we get started?" His oldest son blessed the food. They got started eating. And on that long car trip back to California, this young man got to thinking, that 8-year-old boy spoke to God like he knew him. Spoke to God like he knew him. And this got the wheels turning. And upon returning to California, he met other people who knew Jesus, and he found out more about it, and he had given his life to the Lord. Amen? And it all started because of that 8-year-old boy. And it wasn't until my dad was an adult, probably in his 40s or 50s, that he found out that he had such a big role in his Uncle Jimmy getting saved. Because my dad was that 8-year-old boy that Grandpa called on to lead in prayer. Just say grace. Say grace over the food. How many of us skip it because it doesn't seem very important? I do. I was raised to do it. But, not over every snack. Now, I hear that in medieval times they were worried about catching a disease from just about every piece of food that they ate. And that's why boy howdy, we are blessing this. God in heaven, keep the plague away from me. But we don't worry about in this day and age, right? And I'm not saying that we need to be legalistic about it and bless the food all the time, but you never know what God can use. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? We're a small church, and we've got what facilities we've got, and they've been taken care of about as well as they've been taken care of over the years, and we've got however much money lands in the offering plate, and yet God can take it, and He can use it, just like He can take the honest prayer of an 8-year-old boy and win his uncle to the Lord with it. And we tell you, go tell your friends about Jesus. Go tell your friends about Jesus. Go tell your friends about Jesus. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of being told that I need to go tell all my friends about Jesus. And you've met these evangelistic weirdos, right? They show up. Everything I'm always talking about. And the plumber came by the house the other day, and I said, "If you died today, do you know for sure where you would go?" And if it's me, I say, why don't you start that conversation after he's done plumbing? We get tired of this. And recently a package arrived here at the church, and I opened it. It's from the North American Mission Board, and it's a big cardboard box. Who's your one? And it went in the pile of I'm being told that getting tired of being told I need to be talking about Jesus to every single person that I know all the time. So it's probably laying on the pile, the mess that is on my desk back there. Ashley says amen, it's a mess. She goes back there to fold the bulletins because that's where the printer is. But finally, I heard somebody actually speak on this new push by the North American Mission Board. Who is your one? They're not telling us to witness to every single person you ever encounter. They're saying, ask yourself, who is your one? Who is the one person that you are worried about? The one person that you are concerned about? Right now it's Elsie. The one person that you would love to see come to the Lord. And you're not just going to tell them about Jesus, you're going to pray for them. And you're going to understand as you encounter them that, you know what, they're always watching. And maybe when they see me do this or do that or act this way or have this attitude or just decide I'm never going to speak to this other person again, maybe they don't see Jesus in that. Maybe I need to be different. Maybe I need to remember I'm representing Jesus to this one person. And so I think that's a much better way to go about it. My dad didn't know it, but his Uncle Jimmy was his one. And whoever you've got on your mind this morning, keep them on your mind. But don't just keep them on your mind. Take them before the Lord. And don't just tell them about Jesus. Tell Jesus about them. Ask God to change their heart. We saw in the movie last night that we showed. Thanks once again for coming and supporting our youth and donating to the conferences that we get to take them to and stuff. But this woman, she got out that verse from the Bible. God promised His people He would take out their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. And she prayed that for her husband. Because she got saved and he hated it. He knew for sure there was no God and it was all just fairy tales. And she prayed and prayed and prayed for him every day. Got out that Bible verse, Lord, give him a heart of flesh instead of his heart of stone. And finally, in His own time, God changed his heart. God changed his heart. And He can do that for your loved one as well. Tell everybody about Jesus, but definitely tell your one.